Good evening. Welcome to Town of Penfield Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Committee on March 11th. We're going to first thing on our items on the agenda. Any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Seeing none. The next thing is the approval of the minutes from February 11th. Everybody had a chance to look at those and email Don. So I think we're all set with that. Okay, next we'll go into discussions, and I'm going to hand this over to Don for Penfield Trails Committee update, please.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Right, so our guided hike for March was scheduled for last Saturday at Bay West Park in Rondequoit, and unfortunately the trails were ice covered and really treacherous unless you had micro spikes. So we canceled the hike for Saturday, and I'm watching the conditions, and my goal is to have a pop-up as soon as the first Saturday that comes along that the conditions allow. I do like that park, and we've never done the hike there before, so I'd really like to make that happen. So we'll monitor conditions and hopefully get a pop-up in pretty soon. And the April hike is the 1,000 Acre Swamp, which I think I've said this every year is kind of my favorite. It's a great time of year with all the spring ephemerals and all the wildflowers coming up and the excitement of spring in the air. So we'll look forward to that one. Let's see what else we have. So the kiosks, so the Trails Committee is taking on the goal of defining guidelines for how the kiosks for all the trailheads are used. So we have a draft version of that. We reviewed that at our last Trails Committee meeting. Had a few changes. I think it's probably most of the way there. So we're making those updates at our April meeting. We'll review it again and hopefully sign off on something that then we'll bring to Tim in the Parks Department, and then make sure we collaborate and ultimately end up with something that's functional. One of the things that we did talk about was getting little brochure holders that we see at some of the other parks. And Joel took some initiative and went out and found a few, and they're really pretty cheap. Most of them just adhere with glue, so they're trivial to put up. So I think we'll probably include that in the kiosks. So anyway, so we'll hopefully in April get with you. I know you're pretty busy this time of year, so you probably can hold on. Then the other thing that we did talk about were the red maple trees that we talked about last fall for the Red Maple Grove at Sherwood. And I think that aligns nicely with the Tree City USA. It's it's an investment in trees. So same thing, I'll be monitoring the local nurseries for the availability of those trees, and then talk to you about Parks Department availability to do the planting.
Yeah, I know that's on our schedule to, we tried to do that before the Arbor Day / EV car show event every year. So hopefully the beginning of April, we can get some trees in the ground over at Rock.
Yeah, that'd be great. We're talking 4, so it's not a big deal, but all right, good. That'd be perfect. I think the earlier they go in, the better.
For sure.
Likelihood of success.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Don, I just had a question. When you do the pop-up events, how do you advertise that?
Yeah, so, Bob?
We've got an email. As we've been doing hikes, we've been asking people if they want to be on an email list. So we've got an email list with 30 or 40 email addresses, and then we'll just blast it out to them. Okay. We'll also ask the town to put it up on the Facebook page and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How much lead time do you give the Facebook page stuff, the more public?
I mean, so to be honest, if you put things up too early, the events kind of get lost in all this stuff that Rec's doing.
Sure.
So we're usually about 10 days out, even just for the normal guided hikes. So if we can plan, pop-ups, a lot of times we're watching the weather because they're a little different than standards. So, you got to look at a 10-day forecast, and if it looks reasonable and you can do it, we roll the dice. But
jump on it.
So a week to 10 days.
Okay.
Is our target.
One other quick comment. You mentioned a pop-up for Bay Park West.
Yeah.
Bay Park West has a lot of mountain bike trails in it, so that would be good information to gather.
You're right.
As you do the hiking, how
Yep.
compatible the hiking and the
Yeah,
biking is.
and so they're actually shared use trails.
Correct.
Not bike trails.
Yeah.
Right, so they are, you're right, they are a good example, and the county monitors those. You know, they don't do a usage count, to my knowledge. I don't know, Scott, do you know? They don't actually count users, do they?
Only with the study, I think they did.
Okay, yeah,
The reason they had, but not.
yeah. So recently, the county did a study for all of their parks regarding biking and hiking. But you're right, it's a good example of a shared use park, and, you know, we get feedback.
Yeah, good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don.
You
Appreciate it. Andrew and Tim, next on our agenda is the Parks and Rec property updates.
So right now for athletic fields and courts, as always, we try to have all the tennis nets up and pickleball nets and hard surface courts nets up by April 15th. We start monitoring the weather around April 1st to see if we can get up sooner, but usually we get them up by April 15th. And we're going to be doing field layouts around the same time. We have a bunch of lacrosse tournaments we're working early or at the end of April, and then we're going to continue on with soccer, Little League, and all the fun stuff. So that's our plan for the athletic fields and courts. We just got to get through March, and then hopefully April's a decent weather month where we can start laying out fields and putting up nets.
And we do understand, as I took a bunch of phone calls in the last couple of days with warm weather, people want to get outside. Totally get it. It's a wonderful thing. We do have 4 pickleball courts at Shadow Pines open with the nets up, as well as 2 tennis and pickleball courts at Greenwood that are open that can be used. We do understand that this might not meet the capacity for a nice, beautiful day, as people may be waiting. But like Tim said, we wait until April. It's kind of just standard procedures for those things. But if the weather's super nice and Tim's able to fit it in the schedule, they will try their best. But we appreciate the patience. We understand everybody wants to get outside and play, which is a good thing.
How's the registration going to work? I think you said in the spring, now we use a registration system for those courts, for the pickleball courts?
Yep. So we haven't gotten a lot of individual court reservations. The majority of the conversations that I've had is sending out the reservation form, talking about, you know, a certificate of liability insurance is needed. Really, we're trying to promote first come, first serve. The majority have been large tournaments, where I think there's about 3 or 4 currently on our schedule that we're waiting until that April time when we open up courts and nets to post that on our website so people can look. In our larger tournaments, we're making sure that the people that are able to reserve the new shelter that's there, that's been pretty popular, that it's not overbooking both of those. So some scheduling has kind of gone into it with us figuring it out,
Okay.
moving forward with it being new. But yeah, just some larger tournaments. But when it comes to our programs, we're making sure that if there's 10 courts available at Shadow Pines, at maximum, we're using 6 of them for like a ladder league or something like that. So always trying to make sure that we have courts available to the public.
Yeah, and that includes everything too, as far as in the past couple weeks, we've met with soccer, lacrosse. They're starting to get their schedules in also, so it's just not like the pickleball and all that. We're scheduling out for all our fields in the past couple weeks,
Okay.
so meeting with all the clubs and.
Yeah, they're always giving us April 1st as their date to start Little League 2, and we always use the same line of that's a wonderful thought. We'll do our best, but really May 1st is the day that
Appreciate
that we
your
look at.
optimism,
So
right? You live
all
in
good,
Rochester
but
because I live in Rochester.
and put out there that the fields that we use in May, you know, are also the fields that we use in June and August and October. So. We hold on to them a little bit closer in the beginning of the spring to make sure that they last for the entire season for all of our sport teams.
At the current time, do you see about the same usage from these other organizations?
Yeah, there's been a tick up in some of the organizations, but I think the numbers have been around the same
Okay.
Yeah,
as far as enrollment.
I know softball was one that has really boomed, and younger baseball. We just met with Little League. Soccer has gotten some extra teams, and we just try and balance as best as possible. We're never going to have enough fields in Penfield, and it's true with every other municipality. We're never going to have enough to satisfy, but I think we have a good balance so far.
Yeah.
Andrew, on the larger pickleball tournaments, are you still leaving public courts available, or are those taking up all of the courts?
Those we're planning to use all of them, and that's based on each tournament. There's one large one that we know is going to book up, and then there's actually a couple of state tournaments that we're really reserving or blocking off just in case there's not enough courts at other places because we're a newer location. I think the thought would be to have, part of that tournament come over, so it's not necessarily just that tournament at that one location. It might be at many locations.
Yeah.
So those, we'd like to probably only give half the courts to, but that's kind of like a to be determined to see if they need shadow pines. But that's the hope, to bring in tournaments like that and people to access it and play on it.
Do you have a thought for how to notify users that the courts would be booked? You have a kiosk sort of there,
Yep.
right?
So the kiosk, we're mostly going to point to our website,
Yeah.
mainly because that's the easiest to update and be as timely as possible, where as someone who goes into the 4 or 5 kiosks at our different courts and fields and things like that, it takes time and making sure things are updated. So most likely we'll point to our website with all that stuff, but I think the larger tournaments that are out there for like June and August, we'll probably post somewhere on the courts. But I do know that there's apps out there for play. Team Reach is one that we've heard from. We as the town are not, using any of the scheduling systems.
Right.
We think it's a wonderful social thing for people to plan for, but as always, it's first come, first serve. Any app that's not supported by the town, does not have preference or anything like that over the reservation. So if there's ever issues, just call over the rec department, or we have facility or security staff at night.
Okay, great. Next agenda item is the Clark House project update.
So yeah, that just leads into more, if anybody's been over there, the construction fence has been up, and I think we can have it pulled up on the TV screen. That is the construction fence area. It is left for public parking in that northeast corner. For the amount of vehicles there, it's not that much, but once the grass dries out, we plan on fencing off part of that north part in the grass area to make extra parking for that. But we will be on that once the grass dries up and we feel comfortable having cars park on that area. So it's good. This project's going to take, over a year. So we just, again, everybody just has to be patient, and the parking, it is what it is over there. So yeah, that's basically what the construction fence looks like. Everything else inside of it, they're going to be slowly working at the landscape of everything, and working on the cart barn, taking down the old pro shop while rehabilitating the actual Clark House end of thing. So,
And we also do have all that additional parking that we didn't have before where the pickleball courts are, so.
Correct.
It's just at a different spot, so it's still available, so.
What's going on with the cart barn? Is that being demolished? Is that being
that's just
changed?
being renovated. There's some foundation work that needs to be done, new
Okay.
roof, and a couple of the doors are being made taller.
Is it going to be used for storage?
Storage, it's going to
Yeah,
go back to
okay.
town storage.
Yep, okay. I know that the disc golf community on Facebook had a little bit of concern about the parking limitations, not so much for general play, but when tournaments come up. But I think that the fact that you're going to take some of the grassy area there
Yep.
and make that parking, and then also the pickleball courts down the way, it's not that far a walk.
No.
If you're walking through the 18 holes of disc golf, you can walk another quarter mile.
So yeah, once it dries up, we'll get stakes pounded over there, some snow fence up, and once it gets dried, we'll actually try to put some lining down for parking spots over there. So
The fences went up this week?
Last week.
the actual metal fence that's around there right now, it's up right now.
Okay, cool.
I was a bit surprised on that you had to take that north section of the parking lot.
They needed a staging area for all their job trailers, since it's that large of a job, and all their materials.
Makes sense.
And that isn't going to affect the disc golf course at all? Doesn't look like
Just
it.
parking. Just parking.
And we've been in communication with Registered Disc Golf Association, so they're aware, everything that we just said here about the grass, they're going to do their best to communicate. And then once we get to tournaments, if we've had others where we've had to shuttle parking from other places, we could do that. And really just, we'll work with the different 5Ks that are happening just to have a plan in place for parking and monitoring that until specifically we get that grass parking, then we know how many spots we'll have up there as well.
No parking along Wayland Road, no parking along Clark.
We would not recommend that at
Be
this point.
signs up for that?
I know that's a county road, so I think the signs would come
Yeah,
from them,
so-
but we're in communication
They're
with them.
dangerous to park on anyway,
Yeah.
so I just,
Yeah, last year, even without this parking restriction, there was a cross-country invitational there that people were parking up and down Wayland Road, and it was dangerous.
Yep.
Not recommended to park on Whalen Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a target completion date then, sometime summer 26?
Between the, they were saying between 12 to 14 months,
Okay.
best laid plans.
Yeah, sure.
The next item on our agenda is the Shadow Pines property shared use multi-trail. We had a long discussion last week. And then Andrew has some public feedback that he kind of summarized.
Yep, so ultimately, at our last meeting, we had Adam Reitz from Further Trail Services give his presentation, and we wanted to make sure that we, put all that information on the website, got some more public feedback, certainly let the committee kind of review it on their own time. And then kind of after my little spiel, I'll let you kind of discuss it as a committee with your thoughts and what you've heard. But I did print out general comments. I copy and pasted some emails that I received over the last month. I'm not going to read all of them to you since they're in front of you, but I did at least want to read off the general comments just for discussion. All of these were from Penfield residents, except for a couple of them that I'll identify that are from Victor Parks and Recreation. But some of the general comments that we had was, to keep the land untouched, to keep it for walking only, as many people currently enjoy it, which is a wonderful thing that people are out there enjoying it. Other comments were safety concerns about sharing the trails with bikes. They're worried about biking speeds, sight lines, and just not being able to immerse in nature. Some of the comments were trails may be too close to Huntington Meadows and other properties, in that wooded area. In some of those sections, they may not look natural. It may affect wildlife in the area. Some people had commented that there's too many developed parks and properties in Penfield, and this should just be left to go. And then one person had said, could the pump track be placed at another town location? For some supporting of it, they were looking at connectivity with wider paths for people to access Shadow Pines and beyond. Really, a thing that we heard a lot was designated safe place for younger and/or beginner riders to safely learn how to handle a bike, as there are no current locations or bikes or properties in Penfield for this type of an activity. It would better connect schools, properties, and other locations in Penfield. Again, no current places in Penfield to bike, parks, properties. Access to potential nature viewing and future meadows and plantings. I know it's a topic later as an held item, but I did want to kind of mention it now, and with that comment that Tim and I have met with some members of Penfield Color Green, Megan Meyer, who came here and did a presentation in January to start that discussion of kind of that naturalization process and getting rid of the invasive species on the south side of Shadow Pines. And now that we kind of at least have this concept plan, we thought it was smart to meet and really just had some really good conversations about different locations where we can start. We understand this is not going to be a 2025, 2026 project. This is going to be years and years of kind of bringing this property back to a more natural state. But now with the trail concepts in there, we can focus on some different spots. So the current area that they're looking at, and it was based on some feedback that we had received, is kind of down in the most eastern side on Wayland Road. It's a beautiful spot. It's kind of nice and flat. it's a good place to start because it's close to the parking lot. There's a previous pond down there, and really just potential green trails, which would be nice and flat, with a really good connection over there towards the schools.
Their goal for this summer is just to monitor and like take samples and stuff like that. Nothing, no plantings yet. I'm hoping for maybe some fall plantings, that kind of thing. But we're going to have a couple more meetings in between that time. But right now, they're just going to be out there monitoring the soil, see how wet it is, and whatever else the information they need to gather so they can judge on if we go ahead with the plantings, what kind of plantings they can do in that meadow section.
And there might even be some really good recreational opportunities for programming for education and learning how to do this. So we're excited to continue to work with them as we've done it with other projects with Penfield Color Green. So I think it was a great starting conversation and looking forward to future ones.
Can you identify that area again?
So it's the old maintenance barn across from the Dolomite. Yep, right there.
Okay,
Yes.
that large area that.
Yep.
The driving range, right?
No, it's not the
no,
driving range.
no.
Yes.
Southeast of the driving.
Hole 11.
Yeah, old
If
hole
we're
11.
talking about golf course. But there's these used to be some ponds that are kind of retention.
Oh.
This is nice and flat. There's currently a mowed path that kind of comes down here from our Parks Department, not exact to what this green trail is, but really just focusing on this nice flat area, and there's a lot of people that could potentially just have a nice, easy access from over here with schools, churches, and other
Yeah, the
places.
church parking lot is really proximate to that
Yep.
on the east side.
It's right at the edge.
Yeah.
So that's the starting point. Some other comments, one that we got from the past chairman of the Victor Hiking Trails. He just said that he worked very closely with Adam to create new sustainable shared use trails in Fishers Park and Dryer Road Park. He and his company, Adam, will create outstanding trails that will serve a lot of people and activities. So I thought that that was a really good thing from a hiking committee in Victor that does have shared use trails, basically saying, hey, they made this shared use kind of component work. So that was nice. The Victor Parks and Recreation Director recommends having trails done by a professional designer, and saw more incident report forms from rec programs like a summer camp than he did from shared use trails. So some good feedback. We've worked with Brian Emelson. He's helped us a lot kind of during this process of where to start and where to go. He's kind of been doing this for the last decade or so and kind of taught us some things so we weren't behind the ball. The Penfield Schools Athletic Department supports the plan and will help the schools access biking with the high school and Bay Trail in close proximity. And then experience shared use trails at other local parks as a biker and a runner and a hiker, and had never had a bad experience. And then lastly, I wanted to mention, I know Scott's here, but really, Grok as a partner has been here when the Shadow Pines land use was first starting. They've committed that they would be a long-lasting partner. Some of the questions that we got were, hey, these trails potentially go in, and then what happens for maintenance? And I can only speak to Victor from Dryer Road, and I don't want to necessarily speak for Grok, but it really just seems like a partnership that would last, that would take some of the maintenance off, Tim and the Parks Department, while also keeping those grounds safe and great for the public. So I think that that's a partnership that shows that they've been here kind of since the beginning and given their input in supporting a project like this. So those were my general comments. There's some emails in there that you can read. But ultimately, now I just wanted to open it up for general discussion for committee members to talk. If you have questions, we're over here as town staff and board liaison to help answer. And if you need, I do have the presentation that Adam presented last meeting, but also the aerial map that's up. Ultimately, the way that Adam and Further Trails, they came in to do concept planning. You're seeing that concept plan from the last presentation. The next steps would be looking at those three phases in more of a design. So we would have to then potentially, recommend to go to town board to then hire someone to look to do more design. And actually start towards like that construction piece, but again, only in the design section. So when I talked to Adam, and Tim and I met with him, out of the three phases that were out there, really phase 1 and 2 which were the green and mainly blue trails, those could be done. We could go out for quotes for something like that. When you get to phase 3 for a pump track, for bike-specific trails, those are a little bit more advanced, where that might be a separate recommendation, down the line. So I think, my 2 cents before starting this, based on Adam's discussion, was really looking at that phase 1, phase 2 for recommendations to the town board at this point. So if you have questions, we're over here, but feel free, as a committee, talk amongst yourself. If a recommendation to the town board is thought of, we would just ask for everyone to approve and kind of move forward from that. So I'll leave it to the committee.
If I just throw a clarification question. Phase 1 was sort of the outside, around the, what would become the pump track, and then phase 2 is the far west, is that? I'm trying to remember
I
what
can pull it up.
Yeah.
But mainly, I kind of looked at it as the majority of the green trails were phase 1, and then phase 2 was adding on some shared use trails.
The phase 2 ended up being a lot of the blue trail outside of the green trail, and also the one black trail. There we go.
So there's phase 1. You can see mostly all green trails through here. And then phase 2 would be adding the blue. And then phase 3 would be that large kind of inside bike park and pump track over here.
Yeah, so his terms, I think, were bike optimized, right, for what would be phase 3,
Correct.
the bike park and the pump track. So I don't know, it seems to me, it sounds to me like, listening to people and reading these things, that it's almost unanimous that people like the network of trails that are being proposed. So the phase 1 and phase 2 network of trails. Everyone who says, leave the land untouched for walking means they want trails. They don't truly want it untouched, right? And so to me, it feels like the controversy or whatever, the discussion is whether or not to allow bikes, first and foremost, is a shared thing. And if you could even allow bikes and still limit it to phase 1 and phase 2 and not put the bike optimized pieces in, and then the full Monty is to add the bike pieces, right? And so if the next thing is a design phase, we'd be getting further refining all of those pieces. You'd get cost information probably with that too, right, with the design? Yeah.
Is there any guesstimate on cost?
I know, Adam, we were kind of waiting for this meeting just to hear if we got a bunch of feedback. He is pretty much close to the end of his part of this with the concept plans, but we did, I think, leave a little bit extra money just in case he needed to modify some things before he finalized it and printed out everything and packaged it up and sent to us. But I don't believe a large number was proposed because, a lot of factors in the concept phase could affect that. He put some information in there based on, how many miles and trail type and stuff like that, but I think that would be more the design phase.
Do we think, I don't know, Linda, you may know, do you think there would be public input sessions with the design or as follow-up to the design phase or whatever?
Oh, well, I don't know about to the design, but I think we would have public
Yeah.
sessions where, before anything was approved, where people come out,
Yeah.
open forum, sure.
Yeah, I would think I believe the design would be anywhere from, 6 months to a year it could take. Because Adam's kind of already done the concept, it probably, hopefully wouldn't take that long, but I would imagine once we get to the design, and then the next phase would be, okay, how are we going to, hit the ground running, and how are we going to pay for that, stuff like that. I'm sure that would have to go in front of the board for public participation and stuff like that.
I had a quick question, question on the phasing. One of the recommendations I remember was removal of a number of the existing paths, the cart paths. Do you know where, is that in phase 1?
So you can see, if you can see on the those dotted lines
Yeah.
in the gateway, I believe those are the old paved cart paths. If you go to your...
The one that you're tracing
The
along
one he's on right
is-
now, those would,
that's a- yeah.
that would stay.
Okay,
If you go down to Bike Park and then to your right, and there's little dotted lines right in, like sandwiched in
right by
between.
Gateway, yeah,
Yes,
those are the old
those
ones
would
up
be
onto that
removed.
plateau.
Yes, those would be removed. So
Okay.
any old cart paths that are on the dotted line end of things, those would be for removal, but the solid lines that are existing, they would stay. So like down in the bottom, like the southern half where it says nature, nature, to the east more, those would all stay to keep that loop.
So is that inclusive of the really steep section of the cart path that goes
Yes.
up off of the creek?
Absolutely.
That's
That's his one of the primary things he wants out, because that's, the
Yeah.
sight lines are terrible, it's, you know.
And it's horrible in the
and he's-
winter.
And he's replaced that with graded a green, and then in phase 2.
Yeah, he goes way farther to the west
Right,
than that
So
old
it-
path. I couldn't see that old
Yeah.
path.
No, you weren't able to be here last month, but when he walked through the map with his
Okay,
finger.
and he
And there's
specifically-
property out there that's not used today because the golf course never developed it.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to come in at better grades, better sight lines, all
Yeah.
that is all there, and that's what.
Not
he's
coming
put in.
downhill to that bridge.
Yeah, I
bridge
run
stays.
that on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and that's pretty treacherous, that whole,
Right.
yeah.
So, you know, he did talk about the removal of those existing paths. You know, that one should come out because it's unsafe.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones, like in that high meadow, that's his recommendation, that they be removed, because he thinks the trails that he's proposing are better and would serve a, you know, a better purpose, and they would be built new, so they'd be more maintainable, you know, maintaining cart paths, and that asphalt is.
Yeah, they're breaking down already.
They're breaking down, but that's a choice, you know, that people can make down the road.
Okay, so is there any removal of paths in the second phase, or that's all in the first phase?
I think the majority of the second phase was the add-on into a lot of unpaved areas around here. So I believe removal would be mainly looked at in the first one.
It's something we can ask them to.
Actually, if you click to the next slide, because that last slide did say removal, so that, removal and renaturalization of certain cart paths, but then Phase 2 priorities doesn't reference that at all, so, okay.
Yeah.
We can email them for clarification.
I think it's phased appropriately. I think it would be good to get Phase 1 and Phase 2 kind of close to each other, because Phase 2 adds a lot of capacity. So you get Phase 1 in there, and that's a lot of new trail, but as soon as you get Phase 2 done, the capacity is twice as much, the trail density is way less, the interactions between people, between users is less. So I think that's something to keep in mind as far as a timeline, especially when there's a lot of approval for both ideas.
If we go back to the parking lot, is that Phase 2?
That would be Phase 1.
Phase 1 for updating that parking lot? Okay.
And I'm going to agree with Ben on that, because the green trails, from what I can see, there's not as much elevation. There aren't as many corners, so that the more advanced riders are going to prefer the blue trail.
Sure.
And so if we bring the blue trail in pretty much right behind the green trail, the mountain bike riders will be on the blue trail and leave the green trail alone a lot more. And so it would be easier for the walkers on the green trail. I don't know how many walkers you'll get on the blue trail. There's definitely some elevation. I mean, those hills on the west side are steep, and going up and down those walking would be a chore.
Yeah, and I know Adam did say even the blue ones were hiker appropriate, share use trails, and I think those were those are opportunities for places that we haven't really had people explore Shadow Pines. So
Yeah.
I think, you look at that nature viewing start in there, and then also on the top of the plateau for the bluff view. I think those are some really good opportunities, and something we discussed with Penfield Color Green too, of, if we're going to do this meadow work and pick these different spots, these are some cool locations to really, showcase naturalization and have people go out and see some really cool views that they've probably never seen before, because the current trails don't get you to those points.
And I think, regardless of how you sort of phase it up, that if ultimately the goal is to proceed with more than one phase, that, like you said, Andy, and like Ben said, there seems to have been a lot of feedback about keeping things sort of seamless, right? So you're going to want to, when you're doing phase one, consider what phase two is going to look like, because it's all going to be one big thing ultimately. And so even if you do it in phases, I think you probably have to be sort of forward thinking about what else is going to go here, right? And ultimately, how is all of the trails going to connect and accommodate everyone in a way that's safe and no blind corners and so on and so forth, so.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Adam was trying to say too, when he was saying, hey, focus on 1 and 2 might be a really good reason to go out, for that recommendation for both of those, because then phase 3 is a little bit more technical and bike specific. So.
Could you bring up the phase 2 map, please? I guess in my mind, wonder whether phase 2 is almost two different, 2A and 2B or something. That section over on the left, which is close to Huntington Meadows, and I know I see a bunch of comments and concerns about too close to Huntington Meadows. It's hard for me to imagine it's that close, but.
Yep, some of those comments were, I had really good discussions with people where I do think some of it was when this plan originally started, we were looking at mountain biking. If you go back to the Shadow Pines land use first kind of recommendations to the board, there was really just this area was entirely green up to about here, and it was mountain biking. And I think really we've through feedback and comments that we've received, because we've been doing this for over a year and a half now, and I think gained a lot of comments and suggestions. We started to really look at all of this area, because instead of jamming all mountain biking into this specific spot, where if you really look, it's only a couple trails with the green one coming in. It wasn't really going to be that many trails for bike specific. So when we started to look at, hey, how can we, we're hearing that people really enjoy the hiking trails. Biking also can be on this part of the property. That's when we really started to look at shared use trails and making it the best for as many people as possible if we're going the professional route. And some of the conversations that I had with the Huntington Meadow specifically, I think maybe were pointed to that original kind of green landscape of it butting up really close to Clark and it being very close to properties up here. And I know that feedback was received very early in the process and was sent to Adam, and Tim and I were aware of it. So I know that feedback was received and looked at when we just started to look at this area. So I'm hoping some of that would be deterred. It's never going to be perfect, of course, but.
I guess where my head is, I like the idea of phase 1 and 2 together or as close as possible, but if we can't afford it, I'd almost say do phase 1 along with that southern section of phase 2, because in my mind, that's going to be a lot of the same area, construction area, so doing those together seems to make more sense.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason for the possible recommendation for putting 1 and 2 together is, okay, then you're designing both, and then in future town board discussions and other, discussions possibly with this committee, then it's really looking at, okay, the design's there now, what do we want to move forward with and make sense? So, yeah, I agree.
I can also speak to the density of the vegetation between Huntington Meadow and the park. That's thick in there, and that's some pretty severe terrain on the east side of Huntington Meadow. So you're really not going to see or hear much of anything from the backyards of the people on Huntington Meadow over into there.
And I even think too, and it was part of the discussion that we had, was that blue trail looking more like a Bay Park West, not the stone dust sort of a trail, looking a little bit more natural with curves and bends and more of a flow aspect. So I do think specifically in that area too, it would look more natural anyways than, coming in with a wider path with stone dust and things like that, having it be more narrow, looks like dirt paths where you might not even see the lips if you're out there to see even the trails that there. So yeah, I agree. It'll look pretty natural.
And the buffer was 100 feet from the property lines at minimum, I think he said.
I remember he said it was a standard one. I think, 100 was it.
Any other comments?
So it seems then, right, ultimately, the board's the decision maker, not us, right? And so I don't think we should decide, for the recommendation purposes, whether or not to include bikes or not include bikes, or whether to include Phase 3 or not at Phase 3. It would seem to me that we should recommend that we get the design done, right, that kicks that decision down the road, but you'd have detailed design work and cost information for the town board to make the decision, plus additional public feedback opportunities. So I guess I would opt for promoting this concept plan to the board once it's complete.
I think we should ask for the design in the phases, though, the design costs, recognizing the different phases.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that'll be an RFP that would go out. It would have to be written. And yes, you'd want all the phases costed separately, opportunities to maybe save money by doing 1 and 2 together.
Right.
Yep.
That type of thing.
I think the RFP is 30,000, and I believe because Adam, and who knows what, if we take this next step where the quotes or bids are going to come in, but I think if it's under 30,000, then you just need 3 quotes, and I think because of this concept plan got a lot of steps ahead than someone just coming in, it should save some costs. We might even just be able to not even have to do an RFP. And might just have to do 3 quotes depending on kind of the scope of that project. So that may be an option.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
So do you ask for the design from the builder, or is that?
So we would
it
look to get
separate?
quotes for phases 1 and 2 from a design company. And then if we believe it's going to be more than 30,000, we would go to the board to do an RFP for those designs. But that'll
So
kind of be the
just
next
for the
phase.
designs, and then there'd be another step, an RFP for the
Yep.
actual building.
And, from a planning perspective, not knowing, when this would take place if we do move forward with it, if you look at our year currently, we're in March and it's beautiful outside, which is nice, but people are going to start to be active and get out there. But, if Adam said anywhere from 6 months to a year, and he was even thinking because he kind of took it so far ahead, it might be less. So maybe 6 to 8 months, that kind of gets us towards the end of this year. And from a budgeting standpoint, we can start to look into potential funding, potential grants and things like that, and during this design phase to really look at potentially 2026. And of course, that's up to the board and a lot of different things, but it kind of gives us an opportunity to, okay, we'll move forward with the designs. How are we going to then get some grants out there? And I know that Grok has sent over some state grants and federal grants that we could look into, but it's really, most of those are, you have to be in the design phase or at least saying you're moving forward with your project in order to even apply for the grant. So this gets us a step closer if that's recommendations.
Would it be a different organization that, Adam has his concept that goes to a design organization, and then from there, the designers would have a completed plan that would be sent to somebody to construct it? Would the town be doing some of that construction? Would that be a third party?
I think that would be up to the design phase on what the town could do and what it couldn't. I'm sure that'll be in the conversation.
Yeah, most likely what we've steered toward in the past is having it outsourced, just because of time, labor, and,
So it wouldn't tie up your team
Yeah.
at that point? Okay.
And just the professionalism of, not saying we're not good, but the time that would be needed to make these trails.
Do you know if Further has a design capability?
I believe that, if we put this out there, that,
He'd be interested?
that they'd be interested in putting in, but
Okay.
it's not a guarantee. We would have to look at all the things that
Yeah.
come in.
Any other questions? So I would recommend that we move on to the design phase for phase 1 and 2.
Well,
I mean,
what we
for
would
the-
do is
Yeah,
recommend. we would
recommend
forward
that to the board.
Concept
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
to the
concept
board
plan, yeah.
with the recommendation that they
Yep.
take the step of getting the design done.
Everybody on board with that?
Yeah. I approve, no opposition? All right, cool. Awesome, thank you. We'll keep the committee updated, and then see the process kind of move forward from there. But of course, anybody watching or want to continue to provide public feedback, it's still in the concept phase and then potentially in the design in the future. So feel free to reach out to recreation@penfield.org or stop by or give me a call for a chat, and we can still share some of those thoughts with Adam, currently wrapping up the concept phase and then into the design phase potentially in the future. So thank you.
Thanks. Next item on the agenda is the Penfield Recs Department update. And I'm sure Andrew has quite a few things to talk about
Oh,
today.
yeah. So I wanted to start off, we had our summer camp registration open up on March 3rd at 10 a.m. We got a lot of great feedback from people about moving to a closer date, different time, and everything was ready to go. And then our program was so popular that unfortunately so many people accessed the system all at one time, and it went to a halt, really, where it was just processing. As someone who was also trying to register for summer camp, I can say that not only did I see it from the recreation side, but I saw it as a parent trying to register for summer camp. So really just want to put an apology out there to the community. It was not our intent. We have never had our servers overloaded before, so as we continue to update and change our registration process, we are well aware of the frustrations that it caused this year. We thank you for all the feedback, so as always, if there's suggestions on how to do it in the future, we are very open to it. We're trying to look at this as a positive thing, even though I know for a lot of people it was very frustrating that our camp is very popular, but there may be some other options in the future to make it easier with less clicks potentially and signing up for all weeks at camp, but no suggestion won't be heard, so reach out to the rec department. Luckily, we have quite a bit of time until next year's summer camp registration, but just want to appreciate everyone that called, had their feedback, but we're sorry for the frustrations. We understand that our wait lists, which is nothing new, are in the hundreds and even creeping up to 200 in some weeks. We are working our very hardest to hire as many staff as possible and open up sites. So this will be my monthly plea via Penfield Communications and TV. If you know anyone who's interested in being a summer camp counselor, please have them reach out to Penfield Recreation. You can email recreation@penfield.org, but we would like to hire as many people as soon as possible to plan and open up spots and make our program open to as many Penfield residents as possible. So we also have swim instructors and event staff and things like that, but really our focus is summer camp at this point, just due to the large wait list. So
Can I
What
ask a quick
ages?
question? Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah.
I know we pushed the registration back. Was the sort of initial enrollment number that you allowed before you kicked people to the wait list the same as it's been in years past, or did you open it up more given?
Yeah, because we had typically done it in December, and in December it was a very educated guess, but usually on the lower side just to protect in case of major issues with buildings not be available, staff not coming back. Because we had it in March, it was great for us because we were able to raise up some of those weeks compared to last year when we opened it up. But it is similar right now to what we had last year for end of when summer camp started enrollment. So that's a nice thing that we're able to do that. Kind of the issue that we do see now is since we opened it in March, we used to have December to say, oh, we're going to try and hire all these people, and we understand planning for people in December compared to March is a little bit more stressful with other camps going online and potentially being full. So we're looking at all of those different things and modifying it for next year, but we're trying. And you had said.
Oh, the ages for those you're looking to hire, what
Yep.
ages will you accept?
So we could hire staff as early as 15, and we apply for a Monroe County summer camp permit every year and get it annually. So 15 is the youngest age, but at that point, a 15-year-old is considered a camper. So we would potentially pay them to be a camper. It's not until they're 16 that they're allowed to actually watch and supervise children that we can use for our ratio numbers to increase numbers. So as much as we want to hire, and we've hired 15-year-olds before and great staff, really when we're looking at enrollment numbers, it's 16 and up in order to add kids to our program. So please send people our way, and we'll start the interview process and hopefully have a lot of good applicants as soon as possible.
Is your ability to hire, because you're paying competitive rates, or how does?
Yeah, I mean, with minimum wage increasing, we've, of course, kept up pace with that. With other towns, we're very similar. Our fees, just for residents, are very low compared to other towns, which I think is an increase in why people, want it. But I also think we offer a great program, and I know with discussions with town board, it's just a really wonderful thing that the summer camp program and the recreation department is very supported, and we understand that minimum wage goes up, so we're paying staff a lot more, but at the same time keeping costs so low for the community. It's a wonderful thing, but this is another reason why our wait lists are so big. So,
And there's a lot of great staff that come back every year, and
Heck
you want to
yeah.
keep them because they're wonderful.
and believe me,
You're tired, right?
I think I've said hello to people in my neighborhood more, and if they have a college student or a high school student, I'm a little too aggressive with, what are you doing this summer? Why, do you want a job? Come in for an interview. So I'll apologize in advance if I see you in the community and I start talking about summer camp. I apologize, but it is on the forefront of our minds. So that's summer camp registration. As an update for our summer 2025 brochure, we are working on that currently for programming between June and September. And that brochure will be finalized and in mailboxes mid-April to the end of April, with registration opening up in mid-May. So that'll be on our website, hopefully in resident mailboxes end of April. So keep a lookout for that. And then lastly, when it comes to events and concerts, we're planning all those things. They'll be in the brochures. And then again, staffing and volunteers, we need as many as possible. So please send them to recreation whenever you can.
Volunteers? Do you actually get volunteers, or?
Yep, we always do for events and things like that.
Not for summer camp.
No. As much as we, again, wouldn't be able to add our numbers to that, not volunteers for that, but usually it's like events. We have our Good Neighbor Day and caring, where you go out into the community and help with brush cleanup and spring cleaning. So those sort of things, we're always looking for volunteers and community projects, things like that.
Do you have the date for the Good Neighbor Day?
We do, not off the top of my head, I believe it's the first Saturday in May,
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
which is pretty typical. And it usually falls right in line with the Little League Parade weekend. So I imagine it's that first.
It's the weekend before the parade usually. So
So the
Opening day,
the
everything
opening day of Little League is on the 3rd this year, so it would be, depending on when
It's
the-
April 26th, Good Neighbor Day this year.
Thank you.
oh,
Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, that was April 26th?
Yes.
Correct, yep.
Please access our website to find all those things. Thank you, Julie.
And Independence Day celebrations this year?
Yep.
Saturday before, Saturday after, Saturday before?
It's the Saturday before,
Right.
June 28th. And I think I've mentioned it before,
think-
but if I haven't,
Yeah.
we're planning for Sunday to be a rain makeup date for at least the fireworks event to have at Harris Whalen. The parade at this point, because there's so many moving parts, the morning of the 28th, we'll maybe have a half an hour buffer to really monitor weather. But there's so many other parades and things happening that weekend that pushing that to Sunday would be tough. So we'll do our best to communicate it to the website as early as possible on Saturday, but knock on wood, we got all the rain last year, so this year will be good.
We'll be free and clear. Okay, moving on to other business, which we currently have none.
Other business, I'd like to add something,
okay,
sorry.
you do? Okay, no problem.
Just an update on the Channing Philbrick elevated walkway. They are going to start work on it hopefully next month, weather dependent.
Okay.
So there might be some stuff coming in and out of there now for staging area, but the trail is closed, so there are signs up, so please don't continue to use that section of the trail over the bridges. But the company, CMI, starts planning on starting work on that next month.
What's the duration of that?
It should be, they have until the end of September, but we are estimating that it's going to be way before that.
Quicker than
The trail's open as far as the Honey Creek.
Yes, you can make it all the way. There's going to be a staging area where it splits off to the bridge trail to Honey Creek up towards Mott's Lane.
Yep.
But it's going to be busy. There's going to be trucks coming in and out of there with materials and things like that. So it's going to be a little busy area. So just please be careful. But yeah, you can technically get to that.
Okay.
We're going to have some trails closed ahead signs, so in case people don't know, they can turn back. But that section of the trail is going to be closed.
Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to the held action items. Any further updates, Andrew, for rentals and loaning equipment?
Yep, we're hoping to have, starting in April, the process for renting at least disc golf and pickleball equipment from the rec department, and we will push that out to the community, thanks to both the pickleball community and Rochester Disc Golf, Steve specifically for donating a bunch of discs. We do have to touch base because we have a bunch of them and cannot define what's a putter and a driver. So we want to make sure that, we have drawstring bags. We want to make sure that we're putting in all of the right clubs so that they can't blame, the materials or the rec department for learning how to play.
I can definitely help with that.
I have
Okay.
5 putters in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we'll work with you, but thank you, Steve, and you and the Rochester Disc Golf. It's been great.
Is it rental or loan? You renting or loaning?
It'll be loaning
Loan.
for now.
I think we have. a
Depends
lot
on how
more,
many
too.
discs, we run out of and then how many we get back.
Where is that, where will that be out of?
It'll most likely start at the rec department. We have looked at different companies that do kind of like a box and a lockable box where the company comes in and you access through your phone, you do a QR code, you can pay for it, it unlocks the box. We haven't gone that route yet just because we want to test it internally, but that may be something in the future for both disc golf, pickleball, bocce courts, stuff like that. Haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Is there somebody around using that?
There are places in Monroe County that currently do it. One of the reasons we started to look into it was actually down at LaSalle's with kayak rentals, just because down there we've heard, people want to use them and might, not be able to. So that's what kind of started it, and then it branched and they do all these other aspects, but we haven't looked into it recently. That was maybe like a year ago. But it's out there, so we'll see.
So that would be something that you'd be able to put in Shadow Pines instead of up at the rec department.
Right. Ours will probably just be at the rec office, stop by, sign something out, take it, bring it back in X amount of days, almost like, similar to the library, which is in the community center. But yeah, the company would do it, the town would get some fees back, things like that for the rental, but we're not at that point yet.
Down the road, okay. Thanks. And then did you have any additional things on the plannings you wanted to add, or?
No, I mentioned it before, just that we met with Color Penfield Green, started those conversations. As much as that'll be a held item, I really do foresee us just continually partnering with them. We haven't come up with, is it a monthly meeting or a seasonal yet, but since we're just hitting the ground running with that, gateway aspect at Shadow Pines on that Phase 1 area on the east side, we'll see kind of from there and push out any information that we can. But I know we're looking, at least for this year, like Tim said, to pick a spot, start on that, and then maybe do some educational rec programming with Penfield Color Green at the location.
Okay, great.
So just some clarification on that. When we were talking, when they were here, they were talking a fairly small area, considerably smaller than that big open meadow.
Totally.
Are they comfortable expanding to that size?
And that's the idea that we've worked with them in the past is, starting small, manageable, see what kind of volunteer force they have, what they can manage, because it would be up to them to plant, water, all that kind of stuff. So it's whatever they can manage, and then seeing how that goes and branching out from there to a bigger part of that area or even more down south.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a one season or a 1 year. It's going to be a continued partnership.
Right,
But that's why
right.
we were trying, and thanks to Megan for her presentation, for starting it as soon as possible to get in there. And then as potentially, phases and things happen at Shadow Pines and work is done potentially, that also goes hand in hand with picking these different spots and what can be managed and what would be best for the public to view.
Yeah, I think originally they kind of talked about a size about in front of the library, that circle, something like that.
Yeah,
Would
very
be
small.
manageable, yeah. So it's definitely not going to be that whole gateway area for sure. And
I
it
mean,
might be
great
a
if they
couple
do,
different
but
parcels.
I don't think so.
It might be all split up in a couple different areas, depending on what they find. Okay, we don't have any old business or new business. The next thing would be public feedback. Anybody have anything?
I mean, I shared everything before that I had
Okay.
received, and
Yeah, you can come on up, sir. Yeah, either one, yep.
I'm Bob Reed. I live at Parkview Drive, adjacent to Lucian Warren Park. And I'm here very guilty tonight to be a curmudgeon on the idea of shared use, I guess. But I first wanted to start by thanking all of you volunteers, particularly, and those on the Trails Committee that I met last week, and the town employees for the enormous amount of work and care that you put into your business here. It's extraordinary. I'm really impressed. I'm not happy with sharing parks with bicycles. I'm a lifetime bicyclist. So I've written my comments down. Forgive me for reading them to you because I don't want to digress and meander and lose my place or forget an important idea. It won't take long. Now's the perfect time for the advisory committees for Parks and Recreation and for Trails to take a deep breath and step back from the prospect of shared use in the South 9 of Shadow Pines. I don't believe the survey that has been done so far truly reaches enough people in Penfield. I don't believe that a majority of people would approve of trail biking in the South 9 if they knew it was coming and if they knew what it meant to walkers. I'm just one voice, not crying in the wilderness, just crying in the parks. I think the issue needs far more public involvement and commentary. It's a momentous change, really. I realize that the shared use concept has been baked into this plan early on. In fact, not long after Shadow Pines was purchased, I heard the supervisor say that the mountain bikers will set up the trails. I thought, boy, they've got some traction with the town already. Those big tires, I guess. But is shared use truly appropriate for Penfield? Trail bikers represent, by one study that I saw, about 2% of the population. But they have an outsized impact because they're so well organized, they're so technically savvy, they're articulate, they love what they do, and I understand it. As I said at a Trails Committee meeting last week, I personally invented mountain biking about 50 years ago. You didn't know that, but I rode a 10-speed bike from Keene to Lake Placid on what's now part of the Jackrabbit Trail. I do understand that it's fun and it's exciting. I'm just not sure that I'm quite sure that it's not really good for the rest of us now that are just on 2 feet. And maybe we're an aging population, I guess. They are well-organized, technically savvy, determined to open up county and town trails to their much-loved sport. They can overwhelm an online survey, and I think they certainly did to the survey I saw on the PowerPoint here, in a matter of a few days. 77% bikers, I think it was. And so the rest of us really weren't particularly well represented in that survey. Additionally, they get themselves on many county and probably town committees where they can help to steer the process towards shared use. And I can't blame them. That's what they want. They turn out in large numbers for important meetings, but none of this means that it's appropriate for Penfield parks, particularly the South 9. More than 100 years ago, when our county parks were established, bicycles were excluded, and for good reason. And they were very popular at that time. They bring speed and machinery into places that were meant to be a refuge from speed and machinery. And if you think the speed and machinery are inappropriate terms for bicycles and bicycling, consult the app called Strava. That's where many bikers post GoPro camera videos of headlong races down trails. At Christmas time, my son located one made in Tryon Park, and it would shake the fillings loose from your teeth just to watch it. Someone trying to set their own personal record on one particular trail. You don't want to meet someone like that on a trail. Now, not all bikers do that, but a lot of them do. But even a walk on the canal from Shone Place towards Fairport has moments of tension for me with the dog or with the grandson, because the bikers come up behind you rather rapidly, pedal-powered, and now the electric bikes as well. And very few of them will say, "on your left," vast minority. And it can really startle you. And if your dog is wandering a little bit, lurches a little to the left, or the grandson in front of you, or the grandson behind you, there have been times when I've been quite frightened, even on that open, clear, straight trail along the canal. More than a decade ago, Monroe County partially reversed the ban and admitted mountain biking to Tryon and Bay Park West. If you walk in Tryon Park, you can see what mountain biking has done there. It's not pretty. Walk in Bay Park West and see what sustainable trails look like. To me, it looks like a theme park, like water park sluiceways, not natural trails. And finally, here's a thought. Consult the folks in Fairport. I believe that they admitted mountain biking to the Crescent Trail some years ago and then removed that privilege. I never talked to anybody in Fairport about it, but they must have been unhappy about conflicts between walkers and hikers, walkers and bikers, and damage to trails. It seems strange, excuse me, to be criticizing shared use. It's such a generous and noble-sounding concept. But as you seriously consider the concept of shared use, think about what the serenity and calm traditional users will lose when the sharing happens. The amblers, the bird watchers, the meditators, the dog walkers, the pushers of strollers, the wool gatherers, and the wanderers. These are underrepresented in the survey. Please take a big step back on this issue and consider a broader look at what's best for Penfield. And consider the North 9. It's already dedicated to disc golf and pickleball. Allowing trail biking there would not be as disruptive to those of us who really like not to worry about speeding machinery. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And then, Andrew, if you don't have any other comments other than the stuff you gave us, you received?
That's all I got.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else?
I just want to say, Bob came into the Trails Committee meeting last week and talked to us, and I was glad he came. And 'cause being a biker, former biker and walker, I think getting his perspective was very important. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay, so after the public, oh, sorry. Yep, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Go ahead.
Julie Lewis, I live on Jackson Road. I just wanted to cover a few items. When we talked about athletic fields and courts, I was hoping that I would hear, like Greenwood was supposed to be resurfaced last year and it hasn't been. And I'd heard Veterans Memorial Park was on for this year, and so I'm just wondering if those are going to happen. And the Harris Whalen basketball courts are in really bad shape. And I have to say, I came to the meeting last month when Adam presented, and I came in feeling pretty much like the last speaker. And by the time he got done and we spent time, looking at the maps, I was very enthused about what the south part of Shadow Pines could look like, and really a nature preserve. And it seemed to me like when you got to phase 3, you were definitely going to be drawing the mountain bikers to that area. And I thought the multi-use trails, you could share them and they wouldn't be an issue. So I wanted you to hear that opinion too. On the held items, for a long time there was Shadow Pines Park versus Shadow Pines property, and I see that's not on there anymore. And I had asked the supervisor for like the definition and the benefits back in April, and I'm still waiting for that answer. But what has happened to that? I think it was
So I can,
tasked
I
to you.
usually take the minutes, so I left that off because there really was no discussion in here, so it really wasn't productive. I did talk to Linda as the liaison from the town board and Jeff Leanhouse, and it is an ongoing discussion within the board. So I dropped it from this meeting because I didn't feel like we were adding any value to that discussion. So, but so that's what happened to it here.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not that it's off the agenda, that we've said, no, we're not going to do anything. To me, the biggest way to look at it is when you decide it's going to be a park, there is an entire process that has to go through. There's a lot of things that we still want to do with it. We still want to get it. We want to look at these trails. We want to do all these things. So until we've determined that, okay, we've done what we've wanted to do, now let's go ahead and seek the designation of park. That property will remain safe because there is a 30-year bond associated with it. So it's not as if we feel that there's a rush to make it happen. So I think eventually it will happen. There's just a lot that needs to happen first.
Yeah, and my question was really, what's the difference and what are the pros and cons? Because I understand, like to your point, that there are some reasons that you don't want to make it a park. And that was really just my question that I had asked them is, I just would like to understand, what does one designation mean versus the other, and what are the benefits or whatever. So I thought, I'd asked that question of the supervisor, and I had seen it on here, and I thought, maybe I'd get an answer somewhere.
I have, if I can get your email after, I do have a document that I can share.
Okay, great.
Well, Linda, and I'd actually encourage you, if you've got a document, it might be something to put up on the webpage, if it's in that type of form. Because lots of people ask that question.
And I just want to put a plug in. I went to the Penfield Pops concert last night. First time I had heard them, and they were outstanding. And it's nice to know that the rec department is supporting them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, our next meeting is April 8th at 6 o'clock. Same place. Meeting adjourned.